I have been a pessimistic person all my life. Whenever I face a challenge or an uncertain situation, my mind goes straight to the worst case scenario. I start planning how I would respond if the worst were to happen. I may have inherited this tendency from my mom, or I may have learned it from watching her. Even small symptoms in my body can send my thoughts racing toward deadly diseases. But family influence is only part of the story. We live in a world that constantly trains us to imagine the worst. Our minds jump to questions like, what if I lose my job? What if I miss the flight? What if we lose power in the storm? What if everything goes wrong? Lately, I've been reflecting on my tendency to always plan for the worst. I started thinking about how children live. They don't carry that burden. They simply trust their father and expect good things from him. Spiritually, we aren't orphans. We are children of the Most High. Because I have a Heavenly Father, I don't have to live in the worst case scenario anymore. The worst case mindset comes from fear. Fear always paints the darkest picture. But adoption changes everything. When we know we are loved, protected, and provided for, we don't live in fear of the worst. We live in expectation of the Father's goodness. The Bible talks a lot about hope. In the Bible, hope means the confident expectation of good. Jesus tells us in Matthew 6:32 that our Heavenly Father already knows what we need before we ask. Before the problem appears, the Father already has the provision. Before the storm forms, the Father already has the shelter. Before the question arises, the Father already has the answer. Worry imagines a future without God, but faith remembers that God is already in our future. So why would I sit and imagine the worst scenario when my Father is already working on the best outcome? Think about our own lives. How many times did we fear the worst only to see God come through? How many times did we think we were at the end only to discover He had another door? How many times did we feel lonely only to realize He was carrying us? If He has never forsaken us before, why would He start now? The world says, prepare for the worst, but the Father says, trust me for the best. The world says, what if everything falls apart? But the Father says, what if I hold everything together? Psalm 23 doesn't say that trouble and disaster will follow us. It says, surely goodness and love shall follow me all the days of my life. Goodness behind me, love beside me, and the Father ahead of me. Where is the worst scenario in that? So today, let this truth settle deep in our hearts. Because I have a Heavenly Father, I don't need to consider the worst scenario. I don't need to rehearse disaster. I don't need to prepare for the worst. I don't need to imagine defeat. I don't need to fear tomorrow. Now, when I face uncertainty, I try to ask different questions. What if I get a better job? What if I don't miss the flight? What if we don't lose power in the storm? What if everything goes right? My Heavenly Father is faithful, present, good, and in control. Instead of imagine the worst, I choose to expect His best because I'm His child and He's my Father.